Hi everyone, it's Pat here and welcome back to this week's YouTube upload. Going to be talking about crypto markets, so our classic Tuesday market review. I hope everyone had a good weekend. Tuesday's a pretty good day to do these market reviews weekly, because Monday is usually a day of chop and the market is recovering from the weekend. Any move that happened on the weekend, usually we find that Monday, Tuesday is a day that the market tends to repair weekend imbalances. We could see, if we look at the BTC price, that over the weekend we actually formed some sort of what a lot of people call as a CME gap. I do it a little bit differently. I mostly look at the Friday close to the weekly open. This marks out a gap in the market for me. So if we look at the Friday close, which was around 103,960, and then the weekly open opened around 105,500, and we can see following the weekly open that price basically backfilled towards that weekend gap. Once it filled the weekend gap, we can see how price bounced. So that's just a little tip to start off this weekly market review. Looking at weekend gaps, look at the Friday close, look at the weekly open. If we have had any gaps over the weekend, a lot of the time these tend to repair within Monday, Tuesday, the following following the weekly open. So lots to talk about today. We're going to start off with BTC. Good prediction last week. These market reviews, tend to lead on to one another. I sort of set out the plan for the week, and last week I called out for a pullback when we were trading around 110 back down to 103, and our limit in the Discord got filled. In the Wealth Group Discord, you can join following the link below, but we filled into 103,770 and we're holding this out. So this setup for me, I'm going to continue to play this setup basically until it gets invalidated or it hits my target of a new all-time high, and maybe even towards 120k in June, depending how this week plays out, and I'll get more into that now. But yeah, don't expect to exit this position unless something drastic changes in the market, unless I see something I really dislike. But for now, everything looks fine. BTC is trading below 106. If we look at the daily, 106, 140 is this daily range high. Back from December into January, we can see this is our range high area. So right now we have bounced, and we're trading overnight. We did retest this 106 area, which so far I'm not a massive fan of personally, but it does not change my position. There's a good chance that maybe this can be a bearish retest before lower, and in which case I will take a stop on my Bitcoin long. But for now, nothing has changed, and I think until we lose sort of 102, I don't see a reason why we should trade much lower. If we look at the weekly time frame, this 102 region, is that range high, that higher time frame range high for Bitcoin. And so far we can see the buyback on these wicks and how strong the interest is into this area. I think we should consider this to be a fantastic support and just a very simple weekly SR flip. And I think until we lose this 102k region, I don't think we should be bearish. For obvious reasons, if we did lose the 102k region, let me use the path tool. I think if we'd done something like this on the weekly and we locked in this deviation above the range high, there's probably a good chance that this is the market top until the back end of summer. So I've been banging on about this sort of rally into June, and it's pretty important now. I can't actually remember if I discussed this on my market review last week. If not, then I will quickly go over it again. But historically, in the opening week of trading following the weekly open in the past 7 months, BTC has gone on to trade at least 10% higher, pretty much every time. Following the weekly open, within the first week of trading, BTC has traded at least 10% higher. So if we do that from the monthly open, that projects us to be at a fresh all-time high, technically by the end of this week, because the monthly open was on Sunday. So by Sunday, technically, if we're going off prior moves, then we should get at least a 10% trade back towards new all-time highs on BTC. So this will be very telling, because obviously if we get to Sunday and we haven't seen what I expect to be a 10% move to the upside within the first week of trading, pretty sure we would invalidate any idea that we're going to get a breakup in June, because that would be very telling to me that the market has shifted dynamic, and there's a good chance that we are probably topped until August and September, simply because the momentum is not there. You know, we want to see momentum sustain in moves like this. You know, there's a lot of people right now that are looking for a big sweep down into sort of like 93 and a bounce. And I think anything like this would completely put the market into a very difficult position. And yes, we would probably bounce from here, but I would not expect to move back to like 120. I don't think we have the volumes right now to trade into like low 90s to then bounce to 120s within a, you know, summer months. Historically, summer months are a lot lower volume, a lot lower volatility. So in terms of a break and momentum, I'd really like to see momentum continue to stick around this week, and we can get that break towards new all-time high. You know, as I said earlier, that 106 remains that level for us to flip. It's really important level to flip. If we can lock in this deviation under here and reclaim 106, then yep, a good chance and a great opportunity to trade back to new all-time highs. But 106 is that all-important area. So right now we're just sort of ping-ponging between a big weekly support here, and then a daily resistance. So, you know, if we continue to chop this week, then probably a good chance that we form some sort of range up here, and then we have FOMC, I think, on the 18th of June. I might be wrong. It's at some point in the middle of June we have FOMC. So there's probably a good chance if we don't get a breakout this week, then we will just chop until FOMC, and maybe we can see Ethereum rally, but we'll get onto Ethereum shortly. Taking a look at the dollar, spoken about this on my prior market reviews, but historically, when the dollar has broke down from this $99 region back in 2020 and 2021, we can see the dollar break down under 99, traded towards $90, and we can see the reaction we saw from Bitcoin and risk assets. You know, this is when alts actually went, you know, ballistic. Equally here in 2017, 2018, when the $99 region on the dollar broke and the dollar locked into a strong downtrend, we can see what happened to BTC. And there was about a 250-day window from when the dollar broke down, and it was in its trend. And I think this can be a similar scenario right now. If the dollar does continue to break down under $99, I think we can see BTC and altcoins go a bit ballistic into summer, probably top out end of July, and then, or mid-July, and then bottom into August before seeing a final pump into October. So this is something worth keeping an eye on. Talking about the global M2 right now, I've spoken about this on stream recently. So this is the Bitcoin and against the global liquidity. This is a 10-week lead on the global liquidity, which we can see. You know, I've spoken prior market reviews and streams and things how the M2 is usually leading by about 3 months over Bitcoin, just under 3 months. Historically, once the M2 global growth tops out, we can see that BTC tends to top about, you know, 2 months later. So we can see the M2 topped out in April, following that BTC topped out in June. The M2 here topped out in December, following that BTC topped out in March. Again here the M2 topped out in September, and then BTC topped out in December. So, you know, there is a 10-week lead on the M2, and as of right now the M2 continues to make new highs and continues to rally much higher, projecting it around, you know, July, when BTC would potentially top, right, depending how the M2 now reacts. Like that would put us at around mid-July for a top. So if BTC can get this breakout, you know, I spoke about it on the last week's market review. If you missed it, then head back. And my prediction that we could potentially see a really nice rally on altcoins as long as BTC can sustain this range high flip. We should see a continuation and a rally from Bitcoin, and probably a good rotation into Ethereum, which we'll get onto now, because Ethereum has been showing a lot of strength against Bitcoin, has put in a strong reclaim above 2,500. And I think as long as BTC can sustain above this 102k region, right, as long as we can hold here, and, you know, this week we can flip above 106, then there's a good chance of seeing a breakout from BTC. And I think during this period, we can see some really good movements from Ethereum. Ethereum probably trading towards 3,100 towards this Q1 value area high, I think, and the 2024 VWAP around 3100. I think that's entirely possible for ETH over the start of June, as long as BTC can sustain this 102k region and flip 106. So right now, if we're looking at the market profile on BTC, we can see we're trading below last week's market profile value area low, and also the prior week to that week value area low. Right now we're trading under here, which I think is a difficult place for price, and for an intraday and intra-week standpoint, there is a possibility that as long as we're trading below 106, 105, 500, that we could potentially roll into 102, 700 before bottoming. I think this is a scenario that I'm interested in playing out, and truly bottoming into 102, 700, basically sweeping our lows, which Bitcoin has not been doing at all over the past couple months, which, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we do just flip 106 and rally. But in terms of fresh longs, I think if you did get that opportunity and that sweep into 102, 700 this week, this would be a fantastic place to pick up some a BTC long. If you are not already long from the lows, this is a good place to do it. Unless it flips 106, then, you know, we'll discuss this scenario now. So flipping 106 would basically be my trigger to long a lot of stuff in the market. If we lock in this reclaim this week, like I said, back above 106, I think we're going to break out, and in which case I would look at coins like Fartcoin for a flip of 1.2. I think if this flips 1.2, locks in this daily reclaim, there's a good chance it's going to break to 1.7, maybe even $2 in June. PEPE is another one. If PEPE can lock in a reclaim back above 129, good chance it's going to make new yearly highs, probably, you know, above 0.21, but 0.017 looks pretty good for PEPE. And then if we get that breakout, new yearly highs. Talking about Cal, I've got my eye on this. It actually is having a big upgrade today, Cal Swap, and if this locks in a reclaim above 0.41 this week, I'm going to be looking at a move higher. And you can basically see the trend in a lot of these coins, that if we do lock in a reclaim on some of these, there's a good chance that they're going to make new highs above the May highs, and even go much higher. So to wrap it up a little bit, because we are running over the 10-minute mark as per usual, basically this week I think there's a chance that we can roll one more time into 102, 700. If you're not already long BTC, I think this is a good place to get long with an invalidation under 100k. The other case would be a flip of 106. If we can flip above 106 and reclaim there, and we will just continue to trade much higher. Going to continue to play my setup. There's no change to my BTC setup. Looking for that weekly open 10% pump by Sunday, and if we don't get that, I'm pretty sure we are going to chop until FOMC, and then we have to reassess the market from there. Ethereum to outperform the market on the next move up if it comes. Look at reclaims on altcoins and keep an eye on the DXY. Back to what I was saying about the global M2, we got a 10-week lead, so historically this has been a very good indicator for tops and bottom in the market. That's it for this week's Tuesday market review. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, and all my socials are linked below, and I'll see you next week.